G'day you mob, Pete here, and this is another episode of Aussie English, the number one place for anyone and everyone wanting to learn Australian English. So today I have a Goss episode for you where I sit down with my old man, my father, Ian Smisson, and we talk about the week's news, whether locally down under here in Australia or non-locally overseas in other parts of the world. Okay, and we sometimes also talk about whatever comes to mind, right? If we can think of something interesting to share with you guys related to us or Australia, we also talk about that in the Goss. So these episodes are specifically designed to try and give you content about many different topics where we're obviously speaking in English and there are multiple people having a natural and spontaneous conversation in English. So it is particularly good to improve your listening skills. In order to complement that though, I really recommend that you join the podcast membership or the academy membership at aussieenglish.com.au, where you will get access to the full transcripts of these episodes, the PDFs, the downloads, and you can also use the online PDF reader to read and listen at the same time. Okay, so if you really want to improve your listening skills fast, get the transcript, listen and read at the same time, keep practicing, and that is the quickest way to level up your English. Anyway, I've been rabbiting on a bit. I've been talking a bit. Let's just get into this episode, guys. Smack the bird, and let's get into it. What's going on?
Hey, Pete.
Showing me cat pictures.
Yeah, showing you cat pictures. That is literal.
Okay, so my computer's lost battery.
Uh-oh.
So I'm going to have to look up this
Sorry, I'm about to do it
article.
again.
Do it. Okay, yes. Hitchhiking.
Yes, hitchhiking.
Has gone the way of the dodo in Australia, apparently.
Yeah, it's become extinct.
So there was an article here. You guys can look this up on ABC News. Hitchhiking was once common in Australia and abroad. What changed? So it's rare to see a hitchhiker on the side of any Australian road these days. It's also against the law in Queensland and Victoria and illegal to hitchhike on motorways in other parts of the country. But in the mid-1970s, when historian and author Alice Garner was young, she used to do it all the time.
Yeah.
So the article effectively goes on to say that, you know, it would have been around the time of the invention of the car, obviously. Well, would have been earlier than that, but...
No, people used to hitch rides on horse and cart all the time, I'm sure.
But in the article, I think she was saying the hitchhiking on roads became really common, obviously, with cars post the advent of the car, funnily enough.
Really?
Everyone used to do it before it was invented,
Exactly.
and then as soon as it was invented...
they went, oh, we've now got a purpose for walking down the street with our thumb out.
Yes, that's it. So she was saying it was very common in like the 1920s to 50s and 60s and onwards, but it was different in different countries. Apparently, like I think she was saying in Canada, that women and children would often use hitchhiking as a way of getting to the beach. Or going on a little day trip or something. So anyway, in Australia, it was really common after World War II as a way of just getting around because cars were incredibly expensive.
Yes, not very many people had cars.
You only had one per kind of family, right?
Or even often not one.
Really?
Use us as an example. My family, when I was growing up, my father had a job that a car came with it. So we had a car, but we didn't have a family car.
Well, and how much was the car worth? How much would that have cost to buy new? At the time?
In the 1960s.
I want to compare this to the cost of the house that you guys had as well, because I imagine it would have been a significant chunk of whatever the house was worth.
Yeah, well, my parents bought the house for $1,000 in the 1950s.
Pounds?
£500.
Yeah, okay.
$1,000.
Converted to...
In the 1950s.
Which is probably about 20 grand today, That would be bugger all.
Yeah. I don't know.
Hundreds of dollars back then?
$1,000 probably for a new car in the mid-60s.
House price?
No, but that's 10 years later.
Okay.
The car would have cost what the house cost 10 years before.
But that would be like me. That would be like me buying a Ferrari to drive around, right? The house to effectively have a Ferrari.
I don't know what my father earned, but I suspect $1,000 was probably half his annual salary.
God.
Double, half to his whole annual salary.
That just blows my mind to think. I don't know.
So very few people had new cars.
Yeah, I don't
a lot
even
of
think I could buy
second-hand
a
cars.
car new on half my salary.
No.
Car brand new. I don't think. Maybe a very small one.
So cars probably are roughly the same price.
Yeah. Wow.
All the time. But yeah, it was expensive, but it was just rare. People didn't have that sort of money. You know. We have a lot more. People we're way off track here, but we keep hearing about how the cost of living is a crisis, and people are struggling to put food on the table, and most of that is a media beat up. There are plenty of people who are struggling financially at the moment, and I suspect most of those same people were probably struggling 5 years ago, before interest rates went up and house prices went up and rent went up and so on. It's just been exacerbated now. But people just didn't spend money on things that they do now, 50, 60 years ago. Nobody in a lower income family had new furniture, or they just didn't have a car. Coming back to where we're talking about. So it wasn't that families only had one car. Most families didn't have a car.
Well, I
the
imagine
50s.
at that period too,
they used public
the oldest
transport.
cars out there would have been, 30 or 40 years old, and there wouldn't have been very many of them.
No.
So there wouldn't have been a huge, thriving second-hand market.
No, exactly.
So your only option would probably have been to get a brand new car.
Exactly. And so there really wasn't, people just used public transport. And so the only way you could get around, if you wanted to go somewhere there wasn't public transport available, or you couldn't afford it, you walked.
Yeah.
And if it was too far to walk, you hitchhiked.
Yeah.
And so,
well, and I imagine in regional and rural Australia, that would have been pretty much the only way to get around if you didn't have a car.
Yeah.
There may have been a bus to the main town or something in a certain location, but if you're going somewhere to visit someone who lives kilometres out of town, tens of kilometres or whatever, it's like, what other option? You're not going to jog it.
No.
You're not going to buy a horse when you arrive.
But, I remember there were times when I was a teenager, when I used to do athletics all summer, every Saturday, competing in athletics. Some of which was not local, some of which was, I was competing for a local club, but once you got to a certain level of competition, you weren't just competing against local clubs, you're competing against all the clubs at that level in Melbourne. Mm-hmm. And so I was competing in Melbourne, so living 20 kilometres out of the city, about 16 or 17 kilometres anyway, from where the Olympic Park, as it was at the time, it's now the Collingwood Football Club training area. But when competing there, every now and then it'd be, I'm finished for the day. If I didn't have friends that I was competing with that were going my way, I could catch the train and a bus to get home, or I could walk. And often the walking was, the intention was, I'm going to walk 16 kilometres home, but I'll have my thumb out.
You're like,
and so
last resort,
almost never, I don't think I ever walked the entire way.
Yeah.
Or even same thing from catching the train. I could catch the train on two different lines. One was probably a 4 or 5 kilometre walk home. The other one was a 6 or 7 kilometre walk home. I would do that quite a bit.
That's 6 or 7, so that'll be about the distance from my house here to your house, right?
It's about 10.
K's?
I think it's about 10 to our place.
Because I'm thinking that'd be like a 2-hour walk.
Yeah,
that's quite a distance.
Walking from Sandringham to Beaumaris took an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Jeez.
Walking from Mentone to Beaumaris was probably an hour and a bit. So
it's so funny how foreign that, like it's sort of connected, right? Where the idea of I'll just someone's calling me, bloody spam. As soon as it comes from an interstate or something, you're just like, you bastard.
Particularly if it's not a mobile number.
Get out of here. I know. It would be so foreign to think about having to walk for half an hour to go to someone's house. Like I remember having to walk around Ocean Grove, where I grew up, obviously, to go to other kids' houses. And there may be someone's house was, a 20-minute walk away, or you'd walk to the shops. Or even there were times when I remember the kids, you and me, my friends and I as kids would walk to the Bluff, in Barwon Heads, and that was like 6 Ks, or walk to the lighthouse in Point Lonsdale, again, about 8
about
Ks,
8 Ks, yeah.
and then back. And that would be like quite an ordeal, but usually a social kind of thing of just like, let's do it.
Yeah, you're doing it deliberately, not as a mode of transport.
I can't imagine ever being like, I'll just walk to Geelong to go see my mates. You know, like that's a 20K, 20K walk.
No.
You're like, back in the day, those sorts of things, I guess, were obviously much more accepted.
Yeah, we used to walk to, my girlfriend that I had when I was a teenager, girlfriend from high school, she lived about 3.5, 4 Ks away. Mm-hmm. If I was riding my bike, I would ride my bike there and ride it home again.
Yeah.
But often at night, bike didn't have lights, so, you didn't ride your bikes at night unless you wanted to get caught.
Caught?
By the police for riding it illegally without a light. No, you're not allowed to ride a bike without a light.
Really? So I have no idea. I've never ridden a bike without a light. So.
No, exactly. And so even if I had the bike, I'd be walking home with the bike. Mm-hmm. But that was just what you did.
Yeah.
It's, school was 1.5 kilometres away, so you'd walk to school every day.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think that hitchhiking thing was just if you wanted to go somewhere that took longer, then you hitched. But then it became beyond the sort of, we're talking 40s and 50s, I think, when it was a mode of transport for families to say go longer distance than you wanted. But most people are not going to pick up a family of 4 people.
Yeah.
They don't have room in their vehicle. Mm-hmm. You might have back in those days got on the back of a truck or something.
Yeah, that's illegal.
But which wasn't when we were kids. We had a couple of friends who had utes.
Kel was telling me about
trucks.
Brazil. She's like,
we have 10 kids in the back of this thing going down the beach.
That's how you end up on the news killing everyone, right? Like you have an accident and there's people in the back of the ute, they're dead.
But this is before seatbelts were required. And so we do that all the time. Go to athletic club training. Somebody had a ute and just went, I'll drop you all home. And he just did a sort of lap of the suburb, dropping about 5 or 6 kids off and leaping at the back of the ute.
Safety first, guys.
Yeah, exactly. When you're 14 years old, you don't give them monkeys. You think you're immortal. But then the context that you sent this to me in to discuss was more around the whole, what we call now backpackers, of people going on holidays with a backpack on and getting public transport and so on. Backpacking in the 70s, when I used to do it, was hitchhiking.
Yeah,
you'd literally be walking down the road with your backpack on, and you might have an idea of where you intended to go that night, but it was more, I'll get as far as I can. And if that's walking 15 kilometres down the road, that's where I am. And I'll work out where to sleep that night. But if you got picked up, you could end up 100 kilometres down the road or further.
Yeah, well, it's funny. They had a letter in this article that was apparently from a pub in Tassie where someone was writing saying, we've really appreciated the hospitality of Tasmanians because we got from Devonport to Hobart in a single day in an afternoon because someone gave us a lift, and that's hundreds of Ks.
Yeah.
But today it's funny. I guess, so you, in the 70s, right, the late 70s, did you do backpacking and hitchhiking around New Zealand?
In New Zealand, yeah. Six weeks.
6 months? 6
weeks over summer.
What was that like? Were you ever scared?
No.
Did you have weird experiences? No. What was it like?
Oh, it was weird experiences, but not frightening weird experiences.
Yeah. You get in and they just pull the knife out. And
the other thing is you're a 19-year-old male. Nothing's going to scare you, even when it should. but the world was different in the 70s too from what it is now, and I think this is where we're going of why hitchhiking doesn't happen now. But
yes.
But 6 weeks of hitchhiking around. Now, some of the hitchhiking, some of it was public transport, where you're going, there's some parts in the west coast of the South Island that are fairly remote, and it's 50, 60 kilometres, or more, 100 kilometres between towns. You're not going to walk.
Yeah.
And hitchhiking the assumption with hitchhiking is that you're going to get picked up.
Yeah.
But the plan B is you're just going to walk.
Yeah.
And you're not going to do that and particularly with the weather on the west coast of the South Island of New Zealand. It can be cold and raining even in the middle of summer. And I had one night there where it was 30 degrees during the day, which I think was the hottest they'd ever had.
Really?
In Tiano, which is right down the south of the South Island. Well, not quite, but
bet you it won't be any more. Bet you we've beaten that.
Yeah, probably. Not by much, though. And it was 30 degrees during the day, and I'd been out walking around, and I was camping, a little, backpacker tent, and I had a hammock little string hammock, and I strung that up between two trees next to the tent, and I was just lying around that and went, it's better sleeping outside than it is inside tonight. So fell asleep, 3 o'clock in the morning. It was snowing on me in the early January, this was. So, that was a bit of a circus. So there were times where I would actually catch buses, or one time I caught a train. Trains are more expensive, but it was because I deliberately wanted to get from one city to another city because I wanted to go to an athletics event, not to compete, but just to watch, which in itself had some interesting things about hitchhiking home from a pub at 1 o'clock in the morning where you didn't really know where you were in a town that you'd only been in for about 6 hours. Because after the athletics meeting, I had a couple of friends who were competing, and they said, "Oh, we're all going to the pub. Do you want to come?"
Yeah.
I went, "Okay.
Fuck it.
Fuck it. Yeah, what do I care?" So went to the pub. They all buggered off by 11 o'clock, because they were competing and therefore they had hotel rooms and things. And I was staying in this little backpackers thing on the other side of town. Ended up hitching.
Yeah.
1 o'clock in the morning. You don't get too many lifts in a little town in New Zealand when you're walking along. But anyway, that was an interesting event because not only did I have a good time at the athletics meeting, went to the pub and sitting there with 2 Olympic gold medalists having a chat. But anyway, the hitchhiking thing was it was just easy, and mostly you were getting picked up by other people who were on holidays. So I reckon 50% of the time that I got picked up hitching around New Zealand, it was by Australians. Not that they knew I was Australian, but Australians.
When they're probably the biggest
demographic of people, and back in those days, cars were expensive in New Zealand, so hiring a car was expensive. So people tend to do it in a group of people. Hey, we've got 4 friends, and hire this dinky little car and drive around, and they go, "Oh, we'll fit you in." Just as long as you're willing to sit with your backpack on your lap, squeezed in with 3 people in the back seat of a small car. So that was really the experience. It was good fun.
Yeah. So, did you ever feel unsafe? Was hitchhiking ever something that
not unsafe? Not unsafe in the sense of threat from other people, but there are times where it was unsafe in a sense of I don't know whether I'm going to get to somewhere where I can sleep tonight.
Yeah, okay. So you may just be turfed on the side of the road.
Because there you go. Yeah, right.
Somewhere.
We're turning left here now. You want to go straight ahead, or you start off walking from a campground and go, the next one's going to take me 2 days to walk there. If I don't get picked up, I'm going to be on the side of the road, finding somewhere to sleep. I've only done that once, slept on a beach.
It must be such a weird experience doing that. Like, that wasn't, it was the blink of an eye, in the past where we would often, as hunter-gatherers be moving around and not know where the next meal or food or water or whatever was coming from, shelter was going to come from. But today that seems like such a foreign idea, for you to just be out and about.
We're not equipped now either physically, as in the ability to just walk all day every day. We don't have the hunting skills, nor is the prey available to us.
Most of us could last quite a while without food.
Oh yeah, exactly. But but it's that. It was more in those sense of I wasn't afraid, but it was concern, I suppose, about where am I going to get to sleep tonight. But that only happened once, and that was just sleep on the beach, safer than sleeping beside the road.
Yeah, true. I guess and so in the late 80s and 90s, Dad, what changed in Australia that made hitchhiking a little more dangerous? Are you going to mention his name?
Well,
you know what I'm talking about?
I don't think Ivan Milat was really the thing that changed people's behaviour. I think it had changed well and truly before then.
Okay, because that was brought up in the article as a big.
Oh thing yeah, I'm sure it was, and not necessarily that it changed people's generic behaviour of hitching. I think what it changed was, and for background, Ivan Milat is an Australian criminal who
serial
killer who was picking up young women hitchhiking
and males
backpackers, and basically taking them off into the bush and killing them,
raping and killing them.
And so I think it made people aware that the idea of going on a holiday where your only mode of transport was going to be walking and picking up lifts from strangers was a way of doing things. I don't think it necessarily changed people's behaviour of, hey, you know, I'm out at the pub at night, I've got a 10k walk at home, I'll just hitch home at 1 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
But I think so the Ivan Milat factor was part of it.
Well, I guess to, you know, insert there, this went on for half a decade or so, didn't it, before they caught him? Yeah. And so there was actually, you forget, reading about it in history, you think, oh, he just did it one day, killed 7 people, and then got caught. But it's like there was a long period of time where it was just backpackers disappearing.
Yes.
And never being found.
Eventually we found out that most of them were this person.
I think they didn't even really... Like, they got enough to convict him and everything, but I don't think they ever really got to the complete bottom of any of it. I'm not sure if they got all the bodies.
Not that I'm aware of.
It's such an interesting story if you go down into it, because he had a whole bunch of brothers and sisters, and they found a bunch of backpackers' equipment and gear at his brother's house. And so they still don't know if his brother was involved with it. He's been on interviews saying, oh, no, I never had anything to do with it. Ivan just had this spare gear that I just wanted to take off him. And you're just like, there's so much more going on.
Well, apart from the horror of it, it was a bit weird.
But I imagine at that point too, cars were becoming more and more prevalent around the place, and so it would have been stranger to see people without them needing a ride, right? I mean, I imagine that was gradual.
And public transport became more available and relatively cheaper. Now, obviously not in absolute terms, relatively cheaper. But I think the other thing was that people were less likely to pick up hitchhikers because of the fear of something going wrong.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I think you wonder if you were to tally it all up, you know, were there more crimes that were committed against people picking up hitchhikers?
Or by the hitchhikers.
Or by the people doing it to the hitchhikers, right? Like, so were there more criminals who were hitchhiking, getting in cars and then robbing people or murdering people, or vice versa, like Ivan Milat, picking people up and then being like, let's just go for a trip out to the middle of nowhere. Who knows what the proportion is, but I think I was certainly more aware, by the time I was driving, I was a lot less likely to be hitchhiking, obviously. But I was more aware of not picking up hitchhikers myself than not hitchhiking myself. Yeah. So as in you would go out and hitchhike?
I wouldn't, because I already had a car.
Yeah.
But if it had been an option, I probably would have gone, oh, well, that'll still be okay.
Yeah.
But driving along, I can remember a time, and I can't remember exactly when it was, but I can remember a time where I went passing people who were hitchhiking going, a few years ago, I would have stopped and picked them up. Mm-hmm. Not now.
See, I've done it. I think I've done it once, and I ended up sort of becoming pretty good friends with the guy. I think I got him out of Barwon Heads. He was going out of Barwon Heads, walking towards Geelong, and I'm like, fuck, this is probably like, you know, multiple hours walking. You know, it's 20 kilometres or so.
Yeah.
And he was just a funny character. He was kind of like Bernard Fanning, right, from Powderfinger. He reminds me of him. He was a guitar player, just had a guitar, and he was just a really rough, kind of funny dude who was living in Barwon Heads and, you know, moving around the place, but transient. But today, if from memory, any of the hitchhikers that I've seen, they typically look like dudes who you just would not want to pick up.
No.
They look like guys who've probably just gotten out of prison and don't have a car license.
Yeah.
You know, and they're that sort of like, I'm just not risking it. I'm sorry. Like, maybe if I was 6.5 foot, you know,
you're Jack Reacher.
Yeah, that's it. You can get in.
Who ironically
hitchhikes. Yeah, exactly. I'd give anyone a lift, but
so it was just a reference to a fictional character. But look, I can remember the last hitchhiker I picked up, and it was we were living in the Dandenongs, so that's at least 30 years ago.
Do you remember where you buried him?
Yeah, I do. Buried her at her boyfriend's 21st birthday party.
As in, let her out of the car, and so she could safely go away with money.
And it was one of those weird ones. I'd been playing basketball in Melbourne, and I was driving back home and going, living in the Dandenongs, where the direction I was going in, because I wasn't playing right in Melbourne, I was playing just south of Melbourne. So we were driving. By the time you get to the second half of that drive, back in those days, it was wilderness. It was rural, and I remember driving along, and this young girl on, a couple of kilometres past the last bit of civilization, which was a pub, and it was about midnight, and I went, what is this? She looked like she's about 16 or 17. You know, what is this girl doing walking along the road at midnight? And I wasn't intending to pick her up. I just pulled over, wound the window down and said, "Are you okay?" Mm-hmm. And she just said, "Oh, I haven't got any money, so I couldn't get a taxi. I was at the pub, but it closed and they kicked me out. And I'm going to my boyfriend's 21st. And I went, this sounds like bullshit to me. And I went,
you were just like, really? I'm about to be wrong.
And this is before the days of mobile phones.
Yeah.
And I looked and went, and she had nothing. She was just walking along the road. No, not even a handbag or anything. I went,
you should have just been like, all right, see ya.
And well, pretty much. And I just sat there and went, and I said to her, I said, why would you trust me picking you up? And she just said, I just need to get there. Mm-hmm. I went, there's a risk here of all sorts of things.
I'm about to get stabbed.
Exactly. But the bigger risk is the next person who comes along to pick her up.
It's funny, isn't it? Because you have to kind of weigh those things up.
And this is, I was a school teacher at the time, teaching teenage kids. And I just went, if it was one of them, I'd want somebody.
Turn around, any weapons? Any weapons?
Exactly.
So it's like standing in the car.
And look, there's also the risk of,
her just saying something.
Her just saying, this guy picked me up and look what happened.
You've been like, God damn it.
And so I just said, so where's the... She said, you can just drop me at the corner. And I said, there is no chance I'm going to drop you at the corner now. Give me the address.
Yeah.
And I drove her to the house. She said, just drop me here. I said, nope.
Yeah.
Come with me. And we walked up the door, knocked on the door, and it was a party, midnight. There was a party going on. And this woman who was a bit older than me answered the door. And she looked at the girl and went, oh, whatever her name was. And I just said, I'm just going to tell you, you can deal with this how you choose. I picked her up on this spot. She'd just been at the pub.
Yeah.
And this girl looked at me and went, you bastard. I went, nah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm not going to get in trouble.
I picked her up because I didn't want to leave there, and this was the boyfriend's mother. It turned out that the whole story was legit.
Yeah.
But it was, and the woman just said to me, she said, thank you for doing that.
Yeah, jeez.
And then turned to her and said, why didn't you call us from the pub? I didn't have any money. She said, surely they would have just let you use the phone, And then, why were you at the pub? You're 16 or 17. So, but and that's the last time I've ever picked somebody up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, hitchhiking, it's... And you just never see it now. I can't remember the last time I saw somebody hitching.
There'd be areas in Australia. It's one of those things
you don't see it in Victoria because it's illegal. So.
Yeah, but I imagine there are areas where if you're regional or you're, the small towns, you probably know people, recognise people. It probably happens more frequently. And it's one of those weird things, like the smaller the town, the friendlier people are and the more, I think, open to those sorts of things. But as soon as there's a certain threshold of population size that you get past where people stop waving and smiling at each other and just being like, mind my own business and keep to myself.
Yeah, and I've had times where I've stopped and asked if people are okay on the side of the road, particularly out in the country. You're not going to do it in the city. People wander down the street.
You okay, mate?
What's he going to do with you? I'm just walking the street with a dog. Taking a dog for a walk down the street. And I had it the other day when, to me, I was just out up in the country photographing birds.
I can imagine people come up and they're just like, you okay?
You weird bastard.
You okay, mate?
You look like you're going to have a heart attack. I just parked the car, saw birds flying around in the roadside vegetation. Parked the car, got out, walked probably 700 or 800 metres back up the road following these birds up there. The guy's just driven past, said, is that your car up there? Said, yep. Said, you okay?
And you're like, I'm trying to find mushrooms.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You want to come for dinner? I'm cooking beef Wellington.
Yeah, that's it.
And he just said, okay, just want to make sure. I said, well, thanks for stopping. So
get out. Yeah, give me your car.
Exactly.
Where are your keys?
And so that's a pretty common thing if you're out in the country and you see somebody
doing something
that appears
weird
to be stranded. But there is also an element now of the fear of carjacking and stuff.
100%.
That people go, and to be frank, I'm not the typical sort of cohort of carjackers that you would assume. I'm walking down the street with a camera pointing it up at the tree.
He's going to rob us.
He's going to rob us. He's going to hit us with his camera.
What's worse is he's going to show us his pictures of his fucking birds.
And then there's this other one.
Just take the man. Just
the
take
yellow
the car.
tufted honey eater was down here.
Yeah, Jesus, just take the car, man. Don't punish us. We don't care about your fucking birds.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't know. I found it interesting. Yeah, because it's one of those things that obviously the further we go into the future, the more I'm sort of becoming interested in going back and watching films from Australian history in like the 50s and 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
And I feel like there would be a lot of this kind of cultural stuff that's slowly crept out of the normal, behavior of people or our normal culture that you guys would do. But like smoking indoors, right? That was something that happened when I was younger.
Smoking,
yeah. Smoking full stop. But seeing people smoking in pubs and restaurants, and
trust me.
You see that in all sorts of shows. Like, is it that we're a weird mob? That movie from the 60s about an Italian migrant who comes over and looks for work, and it's effectively a whole...
The thing about him understanding the culture and the language.
Yeah, it's a great film, and I think you'd find it on YouTube. They're a weird mob, right?
Yeah.
They're a weird group of people. They're a weird mob.
And it's based on a series of books that he wrote.
Yeah, but there's a scene where he goes into a pub, and I think they're all smoking and having a drink straight after work all together. Like, it's that rush hour time, right?
Yeah.
And that
was 6
never
o'clock
happens
closing.
anymore. Yeah,
that was 6 o'clock closing.
Yeah. And so watching that, though, I remember watching that a few years ago and being like, these are so foreign to me. These cultural things that at the time would have been so normal and natural are so foreign to me. And I only know of them through film and through stories and through other people telling me. So I wonder how many things today, that we do, that we take for granted, that in a number of decades you'll look back and be like, what the fuck were we thinking?
That's an interesting thing, isn't it? Because I think I look back at the last 60-something years about the changes that have happened, and most of the last 20 years have been technology related.
Yeah.
Communications is the obvious example, that we all walk around with a camera in our pocket that is also a communications device.
Well, and you've seen those things on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook, the little videos, reels of people asking their daughters and their partners how they answer a phone. Do the signals with your hand.
Yeah.
How do you hang up a phone? And they show usually the younger person pressing their hand, like a button on their hand, or holding their flat hand up to their ear. Yeah. And these are all weird symbols. The other person's
doing the thumb and the little finger.
Yeah, exactly. Like you've actually picked up one of those
and then they put it down horizontally.
Exactly, yeah. There's a whole bunch of
What
those.
does the word hanging up mean?
Yeah, what are you hanging it on?
Yeah, because originally, and even that
hanging up on the wall.
That never made sense even to me when I was a kid, because we didn't have a wall phone.
Yeah.
We had a handset, but to hang up meant to actually put the receiver, as we called it, which is a transceiver, but put the receiver down. Whereas back in the olden days, before that, the old phones, you would literally hang it up on the wall.
Yeah.
You click it off.
Or even just calling people randomly that aren't, that on a landline or I just don't answer anyone's phone number who isn't in my phone now, because I've been spammed so much. This is probably the last 3 or 4 years of just somehow your phone number gets out there. You've entered it into something online.
It's random now.
Really, they just generate them. Yeah.
Now half the spam
They get a hit.
is legitimate spam in a sense that they already know your name,
and the other half
is just phishing. Scam. There's a difference between a spam and a scam. Spam is they know who you are. A scam is where it's just randomised numbers. They've just got a computer that is just generating calls, and if it answers, then it'll either be an automated robot talking to you or a person who doesn't know who you are. But yeah, I'm the same. There was a while when I was working, I had to answer the phone, because I didn't know the phone numbers of clients, particularly when I was working for a company and from all over the world. I could have people ringing me from Singapore or India or Canada. And so you'd effectively have to answer the phone from anywhere. You might not answer a phone if it came up as Uzbekistan, but now I probably wouldn't even do it. Now I just let it go to voicemail. And if they don't leave a message, I won't call them back. And I won't pick it up. So, there is that sort of thing. But, I think technology is the thing that has changed the way we live so much.
Eating meat will be one of them. Eating meat from animals that were killed and the meat was harvested from them. The moment that becomes as affordable, if not cheaper, to grow it in a lab, we're going to look back on the fact that we factory farmed and everything in horror. I think it's one of those things that morally and ethically, you're going to look back and be like, you guys were fucking psychos. Yeah. The fact that you had billions of intelligent animals that were being raised on farms just to be consumed. It won't be one of those things where I think you'll judge them so harshly because you had no other option, but it'll be that thing of, I can't imagine doing that today if you had the option.
Yeah, it's a funny one, isn't it? Because I think the equivalent step back to that is hunting and killing.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think I would be, I'm probably physically capable, but I don't think I would be emotionally capable of going out and hunting, shooting a kangaroo, slaughtering it, and eating it.
Well, not just the step between there, preparing it to be eaten as well.
Yeah, but I don't know that I would be emotionally capable of doing that in that same sense. The whole idea of actually killing the animal myself and preparing it to eat, whereas I'm perfectly happy to go and buy kangaroo meat or beef or lamb or pork or chicken or fish or whatever.
Outsource all of the gross stuff.
Well, it's not even outsourcing the gross stuff. It's just, there's a bit of it that's the gross stuff, but it's just outsourcing to specialists.
Yeah.
But we're not hunter-gatherers anymore. So I think it's that step. But I perfectly understand that people did that and they still have to do it in order for me to eat the meat. But it's not I'm not trekking through the bush with my rifle anymore. I'm using meat that has been grown on the farm down the road. So
yeah, it will be interesting.
How do we get on this from hitchhiking?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Don't know.
Life.
Anyway, thanks for joining us, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And you'll have to let me know if you guys hitchhike around your home countries, if it's still acceptable elsewhere.
Yeah.
Apparently it's more acceptable in New Zealand and Ireland. Apparently those two places, at least based on this article, they were saying it's more acceptable there to hitchhike. Which I can imagine because, again, smaller
tourism.
Population,
Backpackers tourism and places are close together.
Yeah. So, cool.
See ya.
See ya.